Hey everybody, I'm back. I'm really sorry about that. I I was trying to check to see if this was going right, and I accidentally clicked out of it. So, anyways, I guess I'll give you guys another second to come back. I'm really sorry about that. I know it's Friday night and all, so I'm gonna try to keep this short and um, respect your guys' time. Hey Justin. So, real quick, what we're going to be talking about tonight is adversity and overcoming, overcoming adversity and some resistance from others, because we tend to get a lot of that. So, I want to invite you guys to ask any questions. I believe the questions are going to show up down here, and I'll go ahead and answer those at the end. I think that's about it. Yeah, resistance and adversity from others. So when we start our journey here with either whether it's working against gravity or just eating healthy and kind of gaining control of our nutrition, we tend to get a lot of pushback from people who just don't quite understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about that a little bit in just a few minutes. But I guess to start off, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Josh Holton. I am one of the newer coaches to Working Against Gravity, I suppose. And my journey with WAG starts about a year and a half ago now. And, well, actually, let's go back a little bit further than that. Me and my wife were on our way back from our CrossFit Level 1 certifications, and we were listening to a Barbell Shrug podcast, and Adi was the guest. She was in Florida, I believe, like the Miami weightlifting classic. Not sure exactly, but they were doing a podcast with her, and we kind of made this mental note that she sounded like a really, really cool person, had a really interesting approach to nutrition and diet and performance, and how all those things kind of like interweaved. So we kind of had that in the back of our heads. That was in July, and we put our names on the wait list. I think it was like in October, give or take. So we were kind of like, oh, if it happens, if we get off the wait list, then we'll go ahead and we'll do it. But it was something that we were really, really interested in. In the meantime, I did a lot of reading. We both did a lot of reading about how to kind of calculate your own macros and do things like that, and how to improve performance. But it was just kind of for our own, information. While this all was happening, I was working on a ship. So some of you may know this already, and also that really, really nice and flattering interview that our crew put out about me this past week. It kind of shared some details about that, but I've been working on ships for 6 to 7 years prior to being a full-time nutrition coach here with WAG, and that gave me an interesting perspective on how to deal with a lot of very unique situations, like with nutrition, with being extremely limited to what you could have, and also training, because if I don't know how many of you have tried to squat and you have the bar on your back, and all of a sudden this happens. Probably not much. Probably not many of you. Maybe some. But it adds a little bit of a different kind of stimulus, I guess you could say, for training. So working on ships, yeah. I worked up and down the East Coast for a while. During Hurricane Sandy, we were actually docked in Jersey City when it hit. So that was a very interesting night, being on a boat as the entire New York harbor gets flooded, and just all this just chaos breaks out. But anyways, the boat that I was on at the time did dredging, and we rebuilt beaches. So the entire East Coast was really, really damaged during that storm. And so what we did was we went out and we essentially dug up sand and then put it back on the beaches, and there was a grounds crew that leveled it out and just kind of rebuilt the East Coast up in Virginia Beach and Delaware Bay and places like that. So I did that for a while and got really, really into training while I was on that boat. My first official strength training program, I did Wendler's 5-3-1. Some of you are probably familiar with that, but the captain of the ship was this super, super fit guy, and he was really into training, and so that kind of helped me get my feet on the ground. From there, I took another job with a bigger company, and I got sent overseas and essentially sailed a brand new ship from South Korea to Singapore to South Africa, over to Curacao, which is right above South America, and then up into the Gulf of Mexico. So that was a really, really interesting couple months. And it was, I think that was in the summer. So, hey Rachel. So that was in the summer of 2015. I gotta think here. Yeah, it was 2015. So, oh no, I'm sorry, it was 16. No, 15. Sorry guys. 2015. So, working out, working on a boat, home for a month, back on the boat for a month, makes for a really, really interesting dynamic in life in general, not just working out and nutrition, but life in general. And it was that fall, 2015, that we put our names on the wait list for WAG. So I remember being on the ship, and I came in for lunch or something, and I got a message, or maybe it was an Instagram post, that said the WAG wait list is open. And I immediately ran down the hall to a phone. On the ship we had 3 phones available to call out, and I called Jess at home and I said, we need to jump on this now if we want to do it, because it's not going to last very long. And we made the decision, just boom, right there, put our names in, and within a couple, not a couple weeks, but shortly after that, we got hooked up with our coaches. And when I joined, I told myself that I can train, I can get my head in the zone for training, and I'm gonna let my coach take care of my nutrition. And I'm just gonna follow what he says, and that's it. I'm gonna put it in his hands. So that's exactly what I did. I think all of our lives change a little bit when we start tracking and being honest with ourselves about what we're eating. It was very, very eye-opening. And also, he did some things with my diet that I never would have done on my own. I would have never guessed that I was able to respond to the amount of carbohydrate that I'm eating. I would never have guessed to eat the amount of protein that I'm eating and the amount of fat. And by amount of fat, I mean it's hardly any. So it's the balancing of all these things is was very difficult to get used to and very eye-opening. So that kind of brings me to the adversity and the resistance. So being out on a boat, again, I started when I got assigned my coach, I was on the boat, so I didn't have anything. I was really, really unprepared. I didn't have a scale. I didn't know what I needed, nor could I get it, because we're 200 miles offshore, and it's like virtually impossible to get anything. So my start was a little bit rough and a little bit unconventional. So real quick, I see that there's more people showing up. So if you have any questions, please type them down here, and I'll be happy to answer them. And if you have any questions, if you want to talk about nutrition, that's cool. If you want to talk about training or music or boats or whatever else, I'm open to anything. So yeah, leave a comment, leave a message, and we'll take care of it in just a little bit. Anyways, yeah, being totally unprepared for this. So what this forced me to do was not only take stock of what I was eating, but also forced me to figure out ways to track my food and measure my food in more unconventional ways. So I want to state right now that this is definitely not ideal. Had I known that I was going to need a scale and all this stuff before I left, I would have had that with me. But considering that the wait list opened, I was already out there. It was just a, get on the wait list, get it going, and then we'll figure the rest out when I get home. So, disclaimer: some of these methods and things that I did, or some of the foods that I ate, probably aren't the best, but they did the trick. And most importantly, and I'll talk about this some more, I had belief in myself that I could do it. So I'll get to that in a little bit. So anyways, I found that using to-go coffee cups, right? You've seen them around, like at hotels. They have there's these to-go coffee cups. They're like cardboard, and if you fill one of those up to the top, that's 12 ounces exactly. So what I did was, in the mornings, I would go down and I would get egg whites, and I would fill it up to the top, 12 ounces, and then I would go halfway, 6 ounces, so a total of 18 ounces, and put that on my plate. And then I would go down and get some vegetables and some fruit, and that's essentially how I measured my food for like the first, I'd say 3.5 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks, because again, you're out in the middle of the ocean, so there's really no other option. So I did that, and I told my coach, Francesco, who's my coach. He's awesome. I'm not sure if he's on right now, but he's awesome. The whole team is awesome, but I've really enjoyed working with Frank, and he's been super patient with me, given this crazy schedule. Anyways, I told him what I was kind of up against, and that there was really no way for me to get a scale until I got home and kind of get this going. So he sent me this chart right here. I actually printed it out for you guys. Right here. This was what I essentially lived by for that first entire month. And I still share this with people because I think that when you are up against the odds, this is a great way to keep yourself on track. Alexa did a really great Facebook Live cast on winging it, and if you haven't seen it, I would recommend you go watch it, because there's a lot of things that she talks about that I essentially used when I first started the program. So I don't want to talk over those points, or you can just go check hers out because she did a really nice job. But I had to find different ways to measure, and an interesting thing happened that once I started doing this. I started feeling better. My performance, I had more energy, so I was able to really crush it in the gym. And after being outside, like essentially walking up and down a ship for 10 hours a day, then go in to train after that, you need all the help you can get because you are just beat down. So I felt better, had more energy, and I started to see some really cool changes in my body, which was just a bonus. My goal when I first started was to be as strong and as fast as possible. That's it. I didn't really have weight loss as a goal per se. I knew that I had some to lose, and I did, but it was kind of a byproduct, I guess, of the clean eating and the performance that I was putting out. So I knew what I wanted, and I knew that if I just trusted the team, that this would happen. So that's exactly what I did. I measured to the best of my ability. I was honest, and I estimated accordingly using MyFitnessPal, and it kept me in line until I got home. And then when I got home, Jess had been measuring. Jess is my wife, by the way, for those of you that don't know. She had been measuring, and she had the food scale and everything. So I came home and started measuring all my food like I should have been doing, and some of it was pretty close, but some of it was way off. And I was like, dang, man. So once I dialed that in, I saw even better results. So that's kind of like how it started and how that came about. But I have a ton of notes here, guys. So I'm gonna try to keep things organized here and also respect your time, keep things moving. The big thing, the overarching topic that I wanted to discuss, like I said before, is adversity and resistance from others. That first month, I didn't get a ton of pushback or people kind of, noticing. But when I went back to work, when I went back to the boat, I had this little lunchbox thing. It's this little plastic thing that had individual compartments. And in the morning, I would essentially make 2 breakfasts. I would eat one, and then I would pack one away for my snack later on. And then at lunchtime, I would do the same thing. I would go in and I would get my food, and I would eat it. I would have my plate, but then I would also just make another helping, and I would put that in my little food container and take it with me, keep it in my locker, and just so at break time I could go out and eat that. So this is when it really started, and I'm sure you guys have had a similar experience. If you haven't, that's great. But if you have, you can kind of sympathize with this. Hey, Kaylee. So you go into a break room full of sailors, and you start to eat your, pre-made meal, and right off the bat, people are just like boom, they just jump on you, I'm not even gonna say some of the things, because when people say you swear like a sailor or you have a mouth like a sailor, I'm sure you guys have heard this expression before. Unless you sail or unless you've been out there, I'm not sure if you really understand the extent of that and what that means, because like I said, I won't even say some of the things, but it was super rude and just uncalled for. And I find that a lot of this comes out of jealousy. And I'm not saying that to sound I'm not saying that to be I'm not better than anybody. I wish I wouldn't have said that. It's not what I'm trying to say. But I feel like when people kind of see others taking control of their lives and taking control of their well-being, that they have a very interesting reaction, and the reaction is to criticize. They criticize what they don't understand, and that's understandable, but it's also super rude, and people just have a hard time with this. Fortunately, I just stuck to my guns. I told them exactly what I was doing, and I took a lot of heat for it. But ultimately, I knew that what I was doing was the best thing for me. And it's amazing how fast belief in yourself turns people around. If they were criticizing you, I can almost guarantee that within a week, if you work with them, you'll see them on a daily basis, right? or if you see them in the gym, you see them on a pretty regular basis. They will start to ask you what you're doing and how it's working for you, and then ask how they can do something very similar. I can almost guarantee it. I've talked about this with a couple clients before, actually, and I really, really believe it. And a couple people have actually had this happen to them as well. So I know it's not just me and like my crazy head. It actually happens to other people as well. But anyways, those guys that criticized, what I was doing and my approach, and kind of turning over my nutrition into to someone else's hands, they came around and they started to ask me if I could do that for them, if I could like show them how to eat and show them how to track and show them how to use MyFitnessPal and do all these things. So it's an interesting dynamic, but if you stick to your guns, I'm telling you, like, people will support you and people will come around. This goes for coworkers, this goes for gym members, like people that maybe you see on a regular basis. This goes for family members, especially family members. I know that we have all had experiences like at holidays where we have like our own like little portions, and we're being very careful about what we're measuring and like what we're having. And sometimes the family is, a little bit like, hey, like they get like suspicious almost about what's going on. I had a couple situations like that, but it's very, 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 very seldom, mostly from the guys at work. But again, the point I'm trying to make is that stick to your guns, because what you're doing is really, really good for you, and it's also super, super kind of weird to other people that don't understand it, but you're doing the right thing. So, stand strong and stand up for yourself. And when it comes to tracking and, achieving and working towards your goals, it's super, super important. Again, before I get into the next topic, if you guys want to leave some questions or comments, please do, and we'll get to them towards the end of the video. What else? Like I said, I have like so many notes here. I guess I should tell you all that if you have not watched all the other coaches' videos that have been on, there's some amazing information. And you should jump over to the YouTube page to watch all those, because you can gain just a ton of insight. I should say that I started tracking and I started seeing like great results and digging further into this. Once I became a coach with Working Against Gravity, I was able to use a lot of these experiences and kind of help people like get through difficult times. There's a lot of people that work shifts, right? Night shifts. There's a lot of nurses. There's a lot of maybe people who work in factories or just work in the medical field, especially work weird hours. There's people that deal with all sorts of different kind of complications. A lot of traveling. I was traveling twice a month to and from the ship, so I learned pretty quickly like how to deal with that. And all of these things I try to share. I try to convey it to the people, and the people that I work with through Working Against Gravity and at the gym, that you can do this. It is achievable. It just takes a little bit of, again, belief in yourself and planning. So if you can figure out, like, take a little bit of foresight and, you kind of look ahead to what you might be dealing with, you can really stick to it. I swear you can really stick to it. Let's see here. Sorry about this, guys. Trying to keep it moving. Let's see here. The practice, yeah. So, along with, believing in yourself and really, really taking this, this journey seriously, it is a practice. So, my big thing when I first started and now as a coach is um, it is difficult. Like tracking your macros is difficult. It takes a lot of energy, and you need to put in like some work to get it going. A lot of it is like trial and error, which is cool. Like I'm cool with that. Like as a coach, if you're really trying to like nail it, and it's like, oh man, this one item I tracked it wrong, or there's more fat in it than I thought, so that's why my fats are over. It's like I'm cool with that because you're really going for it, and that's, you know, personally that's what I really love to see, because I know what comes out of that. I've been there too. I know how that goes. So with that being said, this is a practice, and just like anything else, the more you practice at it, the better you get. It's just like basketball or your CrossFit, your sport of choice. It's like the more you do it, the better you get at it. I'm the kind of guy that likes to make the same meals over and over again. It's really, you know, kind of boring, but it works for me. My wife is much more creative. She likes to go on different websites and make different things. So that's, you know, kind of, you know, her thing. And each week it's something different. Me, it's just like the same meals, like every single day. It's like I said, boring. But it's still like just a practice of being diligent and just chipping away at your goals. I was debating whether or not to talk about this method. Some of you might know about this method or this idea, but this is something that I prescribe to, and it's something that I've told a few clients about. But I don't know if you guys are familiar with Casey Neistat, really big YouTube guy. He had this analogy that getting to your goals is very rarely like a straight line. So he discusses a thing called the Tarzan method, which I've tried to describe over email and over check-ins, and it's really tough. So I'm gonna demonstrate this right now. See, I have a blank piece of paper here. We are here, and our goals are here, right? We are Tarzan. We are here, and we need to get to the other side of the jungle. That's our goal, right? This very rarely happens. It's just like a straight shot, right? Through the jungle, there's no straight shots through the jungle. And we are in a jungle. There's all sorts of things that can come up. There's all sorts of things that can really like trip us up and go wrong. So I'm gonna try to do this live here. So swinging and grabbing on to different vines is what we need to do. This might not be an exact trajectory here, but this gets us this much closer to our goal. And you might have to swing back over here, and then you might have to swing back down here, and then you might have to swing here, and eventually swinging back and forth, overcoming all these obstacles and resistances that we have. Eventually we will get to point B, which is our goals. An interesting thing happens though, like on these little like points where we're swinging to. These are areas that like we never knew existed before. Some of these areas could be like, this is like, you know, a new PR. This is, you know, a new body weight. This could be, you know, there's not much body weight loss, but your performance is going up. And each one of these is kind of a destination in its own right. And this is what we're going for. But there's all these little points that we can achieve while we're trying to get there. And this is part of the journey. This is a really important part of the journey. So it may seem like you're not making a ton of progress, and I've had this happen to me before, where like my weight didn't move, but I was just killing it in the gym, and I was like, hey, this is still pretty sweet. There was times like early on when my weight like really like jammed down, like I was losing a lot, and I'm like, hey, this is pretty sweet. And it was just it's never straight across. It's never straight through the jungle. It's going to be bouncing back and forth. But as long as we're working towards that, that's really important. And again, that goes back to belief in yourself and belief that you can do this, because you really can. It might not be as fast as you want it to be, but we're working on it each and every day. We can make good decisions. We can, choose the best choices that we can. We can track. We can keep on top of our game. We can be honest with ourselves and just keep pushing forward, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do. And again, a lot of people don't understand that. And by sticking to your guns, we are we're on the right path, you guys. I swear, we're on the right path. So, another thing that I wanted to talk about is getting creative. I'm starting to sweat a little bit. I'm sorry about that. About getting creative, and I touched on one of these methods before, using the coffee cup. There's all sorts of different kinds of ways to keep yourself on track and kind of like monitor your intake. So, like that chart is one of the things that I share with clients, and also other people that just want to know very basic how to track their macros and how to like kind of stay on point. MyFitnessPal has an amazing database of information, but you have to take that with a grain of salt, because some of those entries are like way off. So make sure that you're measuring and you're doing like as much as you can to keep yourself on track and not relying solely on all of that that database. It can work in a pinch, but keep the only way to really see the results that you want is to remain in control of the foods that you are eating, and keep cooking the foods and measuring the foods that you're eating to make sure that you are like as close as you possibly can get. Now, one thing that kind of goes along with my journey, and something that we talk about a lot at WAG, is consistency, and how consistency trumps perfection. Perfection is awesome to strive for, and we really want to see you get very close to the numbers that we have set, because as coaches and as a team, we know that that is going to provide the best results for you. But even if we are super close and we can keep ourselves like in check, that is brilliant, and that's a great way to do it. So again, you're gonna be met with like some resistance and adversity when it comes to this stuff. But I think I've said stick to your guns like probably 5 or 6 times. But that's really what you need to do. And just keep pushing forward and finding ways to make it work. Like, personally, I find getting creative like kind of a fun challenge. If I'm like in an airport and I'm like, damn, like I only have like 30 minutes before the flight, or I'm up against the odds, right? You're up against the odds, because this is going to happen more than you would probably want it to. You're going to be at a conference. You're going to be in a hotel. You're going to be traveling for work. You're going to be out of town for the weekend on a trip. All of these things, like, I would love to see you bring your food scale. That's ultimately what we would like to see. I have a little guy, it's about this big, that I take. But if for some reason that's not possible, or you are having trouble, you can get creative. Look around and try to make, I don't want to say make a game out of it. Maybe that's not the term, but it can be fun. It's like, what can I choose right now that is going to move me closer to my goal? I ask myself that question all the time. If I'm going to eat something that's kind of crappy, like, is this going to move me closer to my goal? Is this going to help me build muscle? Is this going to help me lose body fat? Most of the time, If I have to ask myself that question, the answer is no. So um, I have to find it within myself to just like stick tight and be like, you know what? Nope, not gonna go with the I don't know, not gonna go with the donut. I can afford it, like macro wise, I can do that, but I'm gonna shuttle those carbs and fats to like a bigger dinner. You know, like honestly, like more brown rice and more chicken at the end of the night is probably gonna help me further along my goal or to get to my goal than a donut in the afternoon would. So kind of checking in with yourself and asking yourself, like, is this the best choice for me right now? Is something that I really, really encourage people to do. And also, again, to get creative, like find ways around it. There are ways to do it. If you're in a hotel, again, those the coffee cups, you know, take a look at your plate. You can use your hand, you know, as your measurement for proteins and carbs and fats. You know, the thumb, that's a big one. You know, using your thumb for the amount of fats you should have. So there's all these different ways around it, guys, and you can do it. I'm here to tell you that you can do it, and like all of you are. You're all doing an amazing job, and we all have adversity and we all have resistance, whether it's like environmental or coming from different people. But just know that you're doing an awesome thing for your body, and even if people don't understand it, just keep going, because you're learning like so much about yourself physically and mentally. It's these lessons are going to carry over for the rest of your life. So sometimes it's really, really tough to do, but I just want you guys to hang in there and realize that these things do come around. You are setting an example for other people. Like, you might not think about that, but it's true. Like, if someone sees that you come to the gym and you have your piece of like Tupperware and it's like everything's like all measured out, people take notice of that. People really do take notice of that, and if they see that you're doing it, then maybe they'll start to do it too. Or maybe they'll be like, hey, you know, I can do that, or I should talk to that guy or girl about what they're doing. And that kind of just gets the ball rolling. So even, hey Chris. So even, Chris made a nice comment. Now I lost my train of thought. So even if you don't think you're setting an example, you are. And people really, really can attach themselves to that, and they're going to come to you and ask you questions. So stick to your plan. It's really, really a good thing. What else? What else can we talk about? Positive mindset is huge. I talk a lot about that with clients as well, like just staying positive. It's super, super easy to get down on yourself if, say, you miss track or you have like a rough weekend. And as long as we are making like a conscious effort to like continue the path, that is just that's so important. And being kind and being kind to yourself and staying positive. Crosby made a really, really good video about that, so you should watch his video as well. So I'm going to stop talking about it and just steer you towards his video when you get done with this. So again, it's important to just show people that what you're doing is a positive thing, and even if they think that it's weird, you should stick to it because you're doing something super, super cool. Yeah, I guess that's really about it for me. If anyone would like to ask any questions, I'm totally up for that. Like I said, I have a ton of notes here, like all this stuff over here, and I was so nervous about this. You guys have been really, really cool and super nice. I appreciate it. And if my thoughts were a little bit jumbled, I apologize. But yeah, if you know, I like I said, I started out tracking on a boat, which is like pretty extreme adversity. I couldn't even get an accurate weight, you're standing on the scale and the boat is, shifting back and forth like this. So my coach had to deal with a lot. I was like, hey man, all the weights that are highlighted, that's when we were rolling like 5 degrees, 10 degrees each way that day, so it's probably not accurate. But we kept the course. Like, you can really do it. You really, really can do it, and you can make it work for you, even in the most like adverse times. So, let's see here if anyone's asking any questions. Sticking to your guns, that's it. That's the way to do it. Yeah. I feel like that's going to be my tagline now, because I feel like I said that so much. But it's true. Let's see. Wow. So it is 6:15 right now. I'm pretty sure I'm just gonna go ahead and sign off here in just a minute. But I wanted to thank you guys again for tuning in. This is my first Facebook Live. It won't be my last. I promise you that. I hope that there was something useful in here. Maybe my journey and my story has helped you realize that you can do it. You really, really can. It just takes a little bit. Of planning and trust in yourself. Oh, here we go. We got some questions. How did you work to build your meals when food choices weren't ideal on the boat? That's a good question. That's awesome. I should have thought about that. On the ship, we were pretty fortunate enough to have a pretty good staff that put out a variety of choices. So there was always some protein. There was always like a salad bar. There was some sort of like starchy vegetable, whether that was like sweet potatoes. Sometimes it was French fries, and like that was it. Those days were the worst. It was really a bummer because I'm a huge like salt guy. Like sweets is not so much, but like potato chips and like French fries and things like that. Like I love those. So that's kind of like my weakness. But anyways, yeah, great question. I would go down and immediately take stock of like what was there and what was available. And from that, I would go ahead and just immediately portion out my protein. That was like the main thing. Protein was first. I wanted to make sure I got enough protein in each meal. From there, then I would go to the vegetables and the salad bar and like load up on like a fairly good sized salad. And then from there, it would be starches. So again, like sweet potatoes, or I'm trying to think back of like some other dishes that they may have had. But there's a method that I talk about with some clients, and I know a lot of the coaches use it. But it's like a quarter of your plate protein, a quarter of your plate starches, like a starchy vegetable, and then half of your plate should be like veggies. Which acts as a filler. It can get you like a bunch of micronutrients and a bunch of good stuff. So in retrospect, that was more or less like how I did that. And again, I would build essentially two breakfasts at the same time. Like I would go down and I would make a plate for myself, and I would eat it, and then I would go and I would just make the same thing over again and pack it into my little container, and then have that ready to go for like my snack, which was essentially 2 hours later. My eating schedule stays pretty much the same, and I find that to be very, very good. The body really likes predictability. So if you can eat at the same times every day, that's very, very helpful. It helps you establish a routine, and it helps the body just get used to when it's going to be fed again. So for me, that was like, 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and then again at 8:30 or 9 o'clock around break time. Then we had lunch, and there was a 3 p.m. Snack, and then there was dinner. So it was just the same times every single day. And a lot of people think that structure is a bad thing. Like there's no freedom in structure and discipline. think that's there's an author that talks about that. But anyways, yeah, there's a lot of freedom in that. You have to make a ton of choices every day. So if you can stick to the same like meal plan, the same times each day, that's like really, really sweet. Frees your mind up for a bunch of other things that you might need to do. So that's a good question. Thanks, Hillary. What else we got here? Hey, Ricky. Oh, there's more here. Oh yeah. So Ricky's asking about meditation, and then she asks about macro staples. So I got into meditation when I was actually out on the boat because there was a lot of like super stressful situations. Things go from 0 to 100 very quickly on a boat, and it can be totally cool one minute, and then the next minute you could be in like a seriously life-threatening situation. So getting a little bit more well-balanced mentally was important to me. And then when I started tracking, and now as a coach, being mindful and keeping my mind healthy as well as my body is super important to me. So I actually use an app called Headspace, and so it's not like I don't have like a meditation coach per se, but the guided meditations on that app are like super, super sweet, and they've helped me out a ton. So if you're interested in that, I would really, really look that up. Very, very helpful, and just breathing exercises. And every morning, that's how I start my day, is with meditation, like immediately. It's like a non-negotiable. So if you're interested in that, definitely check that out. What was the other one? Macro staples. Okay, so right now I am currently, I guess, on a little bit of a lean bulk, or a bulk, you could say. So my calorie count's pretty high, and it incorporates a ton of carbs. I mean, a lot of carbs. So a few of my staples is every morning, breakfast again. Every morning, oatmeal with a little bit of peanut butter and honey. And that's like, like a 15 grams of peanut butter and, and just a tiny bit of honey. After that, I eat a lot of fruit. You hear me talk a lot about fruit. Apples, bananas, things that do not affect my protein or my fat. I'm just trying to bring my carbs up a little bit. I also eat chicken, rice, brown rice, and broccoli. That's, again, super boring. I did talk a little bit about that earlier, but yeah, I keep it very, very consistent, and I tend to think about eating like how a bodybuilder would. Very, very clean, very basic, kind of boring foods. And that works for me. It may not work for you. I understand that, but it works really well for me. And as long as we're staying consistent, again, like meal timing, like keeping our meals spread out pretty evenly is a really good thing to do. And then giving your body a little bit of predictability with what you're eating is also like super, super helpful. So brown rice, chicken, broccoli. Oats is another one. I used to be big on sweet potatoes, but I've kind of like lost interest in those right now. So it's more brown rice than anything. And I drink a fair amount of protein shakes too. I'll be honest. To get my protein up during the day, I have a few of those, especially around like after training. I'll have one, and then during snack time with some fruit. And I'm usually on the go, so that tends to work pretty well as well. So I hope that answers your question. If I didn't, feel free to message me and we can talk about it more. Let's see what else we got. Anything? All right. Well, like I said, this went a little bit longer than I had anticipated. Thank you for those of you who have been hanging out. If there's anything that I didn't cover that you want me to talk about, like, you can leave a message here on the Facebook page, and I'll check it out. Or if I'm currently working with you, we can talk about it this week in the check-in. So I love you all. I really, really do. I'm convinced that this is like the best group of people that I've ever worked with. I'm talking about coaches and all of you and all the people that we've worked with and we will continue to work with. It's truly, truly been an unbelievable year, and I look forward to working with more of you and just continuing on our journey. So thank you so much, and hopefully I'll talk to you all soon. See you later.